Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Uh, this is our Insecure recap. We're on episode 3, Pressure. Okay. And we're starting to see themes emerge for the season. I think this episode really kind of capped off the overall overarching theme of where everybody's going to end up making decisions, what's impacting those decisions, and um, how they are affected by the things that are happening in this right now, where we've gone a whole year and a half of time in 3 episodes. So the episode starts with Lawrence dropping Issa off from the airport. So I think it's really important that we see that the episode is starting where we left off uh, in episode 1 with Lawrence, because I think that point was an important point for him. It really kind of showed how his relationship was affected by the news. Again, we didn't get the automatic reaction, but we got the end result of Issa basically saying their relationship is over. She can't do this. She doesn't want to be basically involved in the situation that's been created by Lawrence and Condola with this pregnancy. He leaves her and he goes back to his apartment, and we see it's all packed up and ready to move to San Francisco. So Lawrence really intended on just this baby news being like kind of like a hiccup in his life. Like, he really intended that he was going to get to keep Issa. He was going to get to just take his job, move to San Francisco, do everything that he wanted to do, and keep it moving. And we see that that's not what ends up being able to happen. I mean, first of all, having a baby, it impacts your life greatly. Understandably, he probably did not understand that. It's his first child. He is not married to or involved with the mother. She basically told him that we saw that basically he can have as much or as little involvement as he wants, but she was keeping her baby and he was the dad, and that was it. And so we see through this episode, Condola's words come back to bite her in the butt, and Lawrence's actions and thought processes comes back to bite him in the butt. So it's an unfortunate situation because a baby was brought in the middle of it, but I think we're going to end up seeing like just a great impact push for Lawrence. He's really going to have to mature in the way that I feel like has always been missing from the character of Lawrence. I've always, as I said, I'm not necessarily Lawrence Hive. Um, for me, I feel like he's never been the type of person to properly be there in a situation where support, maturity, um, just those kinds of you know human responses that are needed in the situation. I've never felt like he was able to do that for Issa, and we see that he really kind of wasn't able to do that for Condola. But whereas with Issa, I don't feel like it was a choice, it was just his habit. With this, we see that it was literally his choice, and he chose not to be a supportive person for Condola. Um, give me 1 second. So we see here that in the next scene, Lawrence is in San Francisco, and he basically has a new apartment. We know it's San Francisco because we see the classic San Francisco houses, and we see the iconic sloped street. So he has a great view. And then the next thing we see is his new job, which is the Sago Fund. Um, and he goes into work and he's listening to a pitch from Gear Tech, which is a new smart apparel company. Apparently, the people that he's working with, this is like more than the first time that they've heard this pitch, and so they're kind of like, who wants to take on this company, who wants to handle this? And they're all kind of writing it off, but Lawrence is really into it. He's intrigued, so he says he'll take it, and they're willing to give it to him. So we see that Lawrence is basically really kind of successful where he is right now. His job is successful. He probably, I mean, his view is good, so I'm sure he's making good money. He's doing really well. So then we see he's on a date at a seafood restaurant, and he's talking to this girl, and they're having a conversation. Like, we find out for sure he has no siblings. He's not from LA, but he's lived there for the last 8 years, and that he's afraid of the trolleys in San Francisco, which is hilarious. The girl he's on a date with thinks it's cute, but also stupid, and I concur. um, then we see that he gets a text, and shit, we find out that his child has been born, and he gets a text to say that his child is born. And I think this is kind of like the first indicator of showing that Lawrence is not respected for his place in this child's life when it comes to Condola. Um, and so he tells the girl, oh, his child is born. She thinks it's a joke. And he's like, I got to go. Here's some money. And he runs out. So we find out it's a boy. He goes to LA. He seems to have gotten there fairly quickly. Condola's like nice and relaxed. She's in a room with who she introduces as her sister, Kyra, who's played by Keke Palmer, and her mother, Jackie, who's played by Leela Rashawn. And I have to say, absolutely great casting. They absolutely look like they could be, all a family. Also, I to point out that last season, Keke Palmer asked to come on to Insecure to be able to kick Condola's butt. And so Issa casts her instead as Condola's sister, which is absolutely funny. So she's basically her ride or die. And apparently the nurse had said that the baby came quickly. So yes, it probably was not something that was planned, but she could have probably given him a little bit of notice, like something's going down, the baby's coming. But I think that kind of just reads to how little he probably was there or involved in the pregnancy. And so they all were like, well, he'll find out when the baby comes. And then we find out she's already named the baby, and the name is Elijah Mustafa. and apparently he's named after their grandfather. Um, Lawrence is a bit hesitant at the name. The name, I agreed with him. The name was strong, but it was a lot. But he gets to hold his son, and he like immediately melts. He immediately bonds with the baby. They make a joke that he has big ears, and Condola says, I said the same thing. So they kind of like, connect on that. But we find out later he's staying with Chad, and we find out basically he gets kicked out, told to go home. He's upset that he found out that his son was born over text, which I don't understand. Like, were you in contact with this woman? Did you tell her as soon as you feel something, um, let me know? Because I feel like it's been the latter, that you just like, okay, you're pregnant. I'll see you when the baby's born. And so then the baby was born and she told you. So it's kind of like, did you set something in motion to make sure you were there before the baby was born? It doesn't sound like it. And then they're kind of talking about the name. Chad thinks it's Mufasa. He's like, no, it's Mustafa. He doesn't really like the name, but he has no choice. They're basically like, the name you get is the last name, and good riddance to you. Be happy with that. And he's not happy with it. Chad is like, well, are you at least going to be there for when they snip the baby? And he's like, oh, I'm making sure. They're like, yeah. He's like, yeah, you got to make sure, because they don't cut too much off. It's very true. As a mother with two boys, like, that's the biggest thing. I made sure that my ex-husband went in the room each time and made sure that because I had a C-section, so I couldn't move. I was basically tied to my bed, because they do it like in the next day, and I usually wasn't able to like get up and move and go and do stuff. So I would make my ex-husband leave me and go with the baby and watch them as they cut it, make sure they don't cut too much off. So definitely good advice from Chad of all people. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to make sure that I'm at the next appointment. She can't stop me. And then Chad makes fun of the name again. And we do see Lawrence at the next appointment. The doctor says that the baby lost weight. They kind of both freak out. Condola's like, oh, but I'm feeding him regularly. He's like, oh, is there a milk problem? And the doctor says, oh, how is your milk coming in? She's like, fine. I saw an LC. For people who don't know what an LC is, that means she saw like a lactation specialist. Sometimes people have them in the hospital. Sometimes they have them come out to the house after the baby's born. I suggested it's really good if you're breastfeeding or primarily breastfeeding a child, because it can be very difficult the first few days. It hurts, and sometimes the milk doesn't come in all over. So he's freaking out. First of all, he's obviously not involved in whatever she's doing, and he obviously is not knowledgeable about breastfeeding. So he thinks that there's a problem. And she's like, no, there's not a problem. I'm handling it. And he's like, well, I'm just asking questions of the doctor. And the doctor kind of tries to calm their fears, says, all of this is normal. It's your first child. It makes sense. He's like, so many people I see come in with babies who are ugly. I was dying. I'm like, oh my God, how can you as a pediatrician come in and tell somebody that all these babies are ugly? And then he tried to cover it and say, oh, but your baby is not ugly, which I thought was hilarious. Chad had brought up a good question about like, what were they going to do about the christening? And Lawrence is like, that's a good question. I definitely want to be involved in that. So as they're walking back to the car, after meeting with the doctor, he does ask, can we move the doctor's appointments to later Fridays so that he'll be able to come more of them? She's like, no, that's the only day that the doctor's available, and this is his doctor, which a lot of times that is very true because you have to go to the doctor like every week and then every 2 weeks, and you have to go on a schedule, and usually, you know, those doctors are in demand for newborns, and so you don't always have a choice of being able to be like, can I have it every Friday at this time? And so then he approaches her about the christening, and he finds out she's already planned the christening. She's already planned the church. She's already planned the pastor who's going to do it. Him and his family are basically going to be told to show up. And so he's a little bit upset, but he's like, well, you know, what details have you planned out? Is there anything I can do? And she's like, okay, well, we'll have to discuss it. And then we see he says a really cute goodbye to the baby. He gives him the pound. It was very cute. Lawrence, I do think that he wants to be a good father, but his idea of what a good father looks like, which is unfortunate because he seems to have a good father, is skewed. And I don't know if it's because he has animosity towards the mother, or if it's because he does not know how to be the same way that his father was for him in his life, in the same way, because he's not, unlike his father, he's not married to the mother. It could be a combination of both, actually. And we do know that Lawrence and his dad are very, very close. They've had a really good relationship since, as far as we've been told, a few seasons back. So he does go and buys a crib and builds one and puts it in his apartment. So his intention is to get the baby to San Francisco. I don't know what in the world possessed him to think about it, but I don't know what he thought the timing was going to look like. But yeah, it was the weirdest actual thing. Him trying to build a crib out and thinking that Condola was going to allow the baby to just come to San Francisco all like alone. Let's see. So Brandy says that Lawrence is selfish, like always, and I'm ready for some change. And I agree. Like I feel like this was like everybody feels like when he got that job and he was able to, like, you know, move up in the world and really do what he wanted to do, and you know, do the things that he didn't get to do when he was with Issa. He was really changed person at that point. And I feel opposite. I feel like he was not a changed person. I just feel like he changed careers and he changed jobs, and that was it. I don't feel like he changed anything. Hold on 1 second. Sorry, my camera's like going out today. So I agree. I think we see Lawrence's selfishness that he, in my opinion, he's always had, comes and rears his head, and he really just needed to mature and grow up, and he did. At this point, that this was the precipice of that. Still blurry. Hold on 1 second. Um, so there we go. So then we do see them immediately at the christening, and unfortunately, it doesn't look like Lawrence got to really be involved in any of the planning. All of it is basically Condola's doing, because his parents are pretty much upset, especially his mother, that basically he kind of just sold out what they would have wanted, um, to Condola's family. And she's like, well, what next time that we get the baby, I'm taking him to our pastor and he's getting a full dip. So, she wanted the full into the water to get the baby all, fully baptized. So uh, then we see that Lawrence approaches Condola and her family. Kiki Palmer's character, Kyra, is still not here for him, but they're talking, and his uncle is there with them, and he brings up that he's so proud of Lawrence for basically he's proud of Lawrence for doing the bare minimum of acknowledging that he has a child, which is what I got from it. And I'm like, you're not like helping the situation at all. Like, you really need to shut up. So Lawrence kind of approaches them about, what are they going to do for Christmas? Um, it'd be nice if the family could get together. And then once they get together for Christmas, if he could take the baby for a week. And Condola kind of freaks out. She's like, a week? And he's like, yeah, a week. My dad wants them to get to know him. And she's like, oh, the week is like a year. And he's like, but it's a week. And she's like, well, we'll have to talk about it when the time comes, closer to the time. And so I will say, for most of this episode, as a mother, I fully understood where Condola was coming from. She just had a new baby. The father was not involved in the entire pregnancy. Um, it's unfortunate that she also kind of did it to herself. She told him that he could be as involved or in as much or a little or whatever as he wanted. And Lawrence went with that. And I think it caused her some animosity. As a mother, I know that going through a pregnancy is hard. Going through a pregnancy without the support of a father, even harder. And so to go from that to then, I've had the baby, he's perfect, I'm doing the best I can, I'm being as the best mother that I can be, and then realizing you have to then relinquish your child in some way to somebody you barely know. And at this point, because he's been so unsupportive, you don't trust, is a lot. So I definitely agreed a lot of times with how Condola was feeling, but I couldn't fully feel sorry for her because she brought it on herself. And not because she brought it on herself in that she got pregnant on purpose, or she shouldn't kept the baby, because she should not have said what she tried to be an independent woman and told him he didn't have to be there. And what she did not realize, and a lot of times women don't, people don't, they don't realize the impact of the words on a situation as high stakes as this one, how much it can affect what will end up happening in the situation down the road. She should have told Lawrence, you need to be here. I want you to be here. And then if he wasn't there, she had every right to be like, I told you to be here. You weren't there. I don't trust you. No. But that's not what she said. And Randy says, yeah, I was team Condola and I was in trusting Lawrence either. And I get that because I we see Lawrence doing these things that, he has every intention of being like a better father. He's just biding his time till he could take the kid, and he's building a nursery, but she's not seeing those things. And then we see that he does some more things to make it even less of a situation that she could trust him in at all. So then, after that, we see that he's on a work call. They're having a office space conversation. He basically finishes late, which happens, and so he misses his weekly flight to LA and decides to really blow it off. Um, he texts Condola. He doesn't give her enough time to realize that he's not coming. You know, she has plans. We find out she was going to go for a massage with her sister. We see Kyra come in with the baby and has him crip walking, which is hilarious. And when she tells her, oh, he's not coming and you already hate him, which she calls Lawrence Ashy Larry, which I thought was also hilarious. And I might end up using that eventually again, depending on the situation. But she's like, she was really looking forward to the massage, and now he's not coming, and she doesn't have that time like she thought she was. So it's like just in the moment where she was starting to trust him and starting to like be like, oh, it's okay if I give a little bit, he comes and disappoints her again. And so he doesn't keep his word, and it really does impact what we see further in the episode. And her sister basically says, go ahead, go, I'll watch the baby, and we're just going to keep it moving. And we see that happening a lot in real life. I think that's the best thing about this show and how Issa Rae does things is a lot of these storylines are very, very real. They're just, the setting is different, but we know Condola's, we know Lawrence's, we know Issa's, we know Molly's, and so we can really fully understand how they feel, even if we don't agree with them. And to me, in this episode, I really do feel like they were both assholes, but I understood where both of them were coming from. So we see that Lawrence fully sets up this beautiful nursery with, floating lights above the room, a nice crib, toys. He really intends on Elijah coming. And while he's doing that, he gets a text from Condola saying Simone's birthday is coming up. Simone is Derek and Tiffany's daughter. And she basically is turning one, and they're having a party, and Condola asks, hey, so she kind of extends the olive branch. Do you want to go to this party together? Like, do we show up together with the baby? And he's like, sure, why not? Couple of things about this though. A lot of people I've seen talk about why she did that. Possibly she did that to like show a united front with Lawrence against Issa. That's also possible. It's also possible that she really wanted to try and not walk in there being different. And we're not sure. We don't always, we don't always get Condola's point of view. A lot of times they cut away from her point of view, so we can only inference. But she might have wanted just to go in there and tried to be a regular family. To people, she knew that those people were going to be, that was going to be there were her friends. Um, they knew she had a baby with somebody she's not with, but me walking into a place saying, hey, I'm not with the father, but look, he's here and we're supporting each other, is different than walking in alone and he show up and it's like, oh, we're not together and I have this little baby. So they do end up going to Simone's birthday party together. Um, and we see Kelly, Derek, and Tiffany approach them. Kelly's wearing a full little suit to match Simone, which I thought was so cute. And then Lawrence notices that Peppa Pig is there, and she's like, no, 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 not Peppa Pig, Pepper Pig. Apparently, it's her crazy cousin Tyrone that we've seen in earlier seasons. And so uh, Condola takes the baby with Tiffany to go do some stuff. And with Simone, the baby, to go look at some stuff. And then, did they take the baby? Yes, I think so. Or Derek might have had the baby. I can't remember which one. But then we see he kind of asks a roundabout way while Condola is gone whether Issa's okay to Kelly. Like, oh, long time no see. How are you? And how's everyone? And Kelly gives the absolute best statement I've ever heard. And if ever, like, I'm in a situation where my ex-boyfriend or my ex-significant other walks into a room and asks somebody how I'm doing, I want it to be stated like this. All the people I associate with are thriving in abundance. Amazing. Amazing. I love it. I love Kelly. But she had mentioned that she had died. And he was like, what? And Derek explained that she stopped drinking. But I don't know what was in her toast, because the next thing we see is Kelly toasted to baby Simone, how much she loves her goddaughter, but she doesn't like kids because they're all tiny demons. And um, Simone is an angel among those demons. So I love the character of Kelly, but we do see how her dying actually affected her. She stopped drinking. She's put all into her new godchild even more, and is there for them, and helping to throw this party. I think it's so sweet. And we see that she's a lot more serious. She's still very funny. She's still Kelly, but she's a lot more serious in how she's approaching her situations. And I really am glad to see it. A lot of people are asking whether or not she's going to get a spinoff. I would love for Kelly to get a spinoff. I think she is just like, Natasha Rothwell is just like an absolutely great actress. I do know she has a contract though with HBO for something else, so I'm not sure if she would be able to continue the character as Kelly. But absolutely love her character. So then we see that they're going through the party. Pepper Pig is smoking out and absolutely hilarious. But the baby's crying. Lawrence takes the baby, and we see that he comes back and there's like a smear of like carrot on the baby, and Condola freaks out. And so it's kind of like he keeps doing these things to assert control as the dad, but he doesn't realize by doing these things he's making her more and more distrustful of him, even at the points where she would like to relinquish control because she's just tired. She can't, because she just cannot trust him. And so they kind of have like a full-blown argument in the party over the fact that he introduced not even baby food, mashed food, um, to the baby without her knowledge and consent. And he's like, well, I'm the dad. The doctor already said that he could get food. And she was like, yeah, but I had decided that that's not what we were going to do. We're going to wait. And you did it without me. And it's kind of also like, you took that away from me. Like his first taste of food, I didn't get to be there and witness it and see if he had any reaction to it, or like you ripped that away from me. So I definitely understood where Condola was coming from right there. Lawrence does not. Lawrence feels like she is being mean for no reason. They get into a fight, they knock over some presents. Derek has to come and ask him to come help move some stuff. Derek basically is doing it to distract him and said, there's nothing to move. You need to stop. This is not what you want to do with the mother of your child. You don't want to create this relationship. The baby just got here. And he's like, me and Tiffany, we went through our stuff and, it was hard, but we eventually figured it out. And he's like, yeah, but that's different. You guys are married. And I really do feel like he doesn't understand that, no, you do not have to be there romantically for Condola, but you do have to be there in support of her. You do have to be there in support of each other. You do have to be there and communicate with her. She is the mother of your child. So Lawrence just doesn't know how. And I think it's going to end up playing out where he probably is still kind of not going to know how going forward. And we'll talk about what I think might happen at the end based on what happens in the end. But Lawrence and Derek talk, and he walks away, and he's not really kind of listening to what Derek is trying to say. Derek is the best male across seasons. He's been absolutely there for everybody. He's like the voice of reason, consistent voice of reason. And he has so much knowledge. We definitely should be prideful of what Derek has brought to this show in the final seasons. I hope he does get his little bit of flowers on how great he is. But so then Lawrence flies back, and we get this really like impactful split screen montage of just the difference between being a father who is not focused on fathering and being a mother and to a baby, and you don't have any choice but to focus on the baby. So we see two different sides of what's happening. Lawrence is basically going to work, building this company up and doing well. They found their space. They're launching. It's great. He's tired, but he's tired in a way that's not the same as Condola, she's barely getting sleep. She has to be there for all the baby's cries. The baby is fussy all the time. She's falling asleep on the toilet. And while she's falling asleep on the toilet, Lawrence is fucking some girl that he met in a seafood restaurant months ago that obviously does not care that he just had a baby. So it's really like a stark contrast, and you really see like how really selfish Lawrence is being, because he kind of just focuses on what he feels like is important at the time he feels like important, and he's able to just totally divide his attention from the child. And Condola doesn't have those abilities. So at the point that we see in the next scene, he's texting Condola because he's decided, hey, I want to take the baby. And she's like, well, the last time we saw each other, he was fighting with me, and it was because I wouldn't relinquish control. So I'm tired. So yes, come and get the baby. Come and get your son. And he does. He's excited. The nursery is all set up. It's beautiful. And he heads off to LA. And then he comes in and the baby is fussy. And instead of like trying to understand that you're taking a mother away from her child for probably what's going to be the first time, he's like, oh, it's just down the road. I've done all these things to make sure that we're close, and I'm his dad. He like is trying to rush her to give him the baby. And so Condola is like freaking out. He's not really reassuring her. The baby is crying. He thinks that all he has to do is just take the baby and the baby will calm down, and she's not comfortable with it. She basically tells him, you know what? I don't think he's ready. I'm not ready. You can't do this. And he's like, he tears into her and he goes full throttle. He's like, that's it. You just don't want me to be a dad. You keep holding stuff against me. And she's like, no, I just don't trust you. And he's like, um, you what are you talking about? How dare you? And she's like, basically, you're a part-time dad. You don't do what you're supposed to do. You don't be consistent. You say you're not coming, like the most that you've said is like 3 hours before you decide not to come. Oh, well, I work and I have stuff to do. And you have not allowed me to be a father. She's like, because you haven't been there. And he's like, well, it's not my fault. You basically dropped this bomb on me and blew up my life. And we see that he has just been harboring all this animosity from the fact that she kept the baby and got pregnant, and he had been ready to move forward in his life. And that, she basically is harboring the same thing, because she says, like, you weren't there, you moved. And that seems to be the biggest thing, is that he moved to San Francisco and did not think about the impact of her needing him in LA. And so it kind of just comes to blows. She's absolutely like, no, you're not getting the baby. He's like, well, I'm going to protect my rights to him. And she's like, basically, he threatened her, and she basically was like, get the fuck out of my house. So then the next thing we see, he's flying home, and he's in a plane. Now, to think about it, if he had maybe stayed a day and thought about it, or went someplace else and thought about it, we might not get where we end up eventually. So what happens next is he gets on a plane, and the plane experiences extreme turbulence. Now, I don't know if you've ever been on a plane that's experienced extreme turbulence. I have. I've been on a plane where we were literally in the middle of two storms, and our plane was in the middle of, we're like trying to fly straight, and the turbulence, like the plane is going like up and down. It feels like it's about to fall out the sky. And so he experiences what is like a near death experience. And so we see, this is the theme. Kelly experienced it, Issa experienced it, and now Lawrence has experienced it. That these moments in time that impact them so much at this point in time, that it literally triggers them to make different and important decisions on how they want to move forward in their life. And so the next thing that we do see is he gets home and he calls Condola, and she picks up, shockingly, and he apologizes. He realized he fucked up, and he's like, we need to figure this out. And she's amenable to it. And I think we're going to see that he's going to have to end up moving back to LA. There's no way for him to properly co-parent in the way that's necessary for Elijah by being in San Francisco. And so sometimes when we have these important things that happen in our life, we have to sacrifice something. We have to give something up. And I understand that Lawrence did not want to give up where he felt his career was projecting him. Because remember, when we started the show, he had been out of work for 2 years. He was struggling, and it impacted his relationship on Issa that she cheated on him. And I think he felt like, if I just keep pushing myself and try to be successful, everything will fall into place. I'll be I'll be able to take care of my son. He won't really miss these first few years. Really, I can get us where we need to be. And it just, it's not going to work. So I definitely think he's going to end up moving back. Now, in the impact of him moving back, is he going to be able to separate a co-parenting relationship with Condola and being able to separate their romantic relationship? I have a feeling that, just like we kind of saw with Nathan and Issa, where Issa is so out of whack that she still has these residual feelings for Nathan, that she's like, well, the person I want to be with, I can't be with. But I wanted to be with Nathan at one point, so maybe he's who I should be with. Um, I'm thinking that at some point Lawrence and Condola might try to get back together. Um, whether it works out, I don't think it will. I don't think that they're compatible personally, but I don't know. I don't know where Issa Rae is going to go with this situation, but I think that is something that we could possibly see, that they do attempt to be a couple again, because sometimes people don't know where to divide the line when they're co-parenting. Um, but I have to say, I'm really still loving the season. I really love the themes that we're seeing. These people are in their 30s, and their decisions that they've been making since they were in their 20s are starting to really impact their life. But we see that the growth that's happening is kind of happening more rapidly. It's happening, in a way that we're just seeing the growth, and we know that the growth should have taken place by years ago, because they had situations where you would think that they would have grown up with those situations, but they haven't. So we see with Lawrence, it's taken a near death experience, the fact that he might have left his baby without his father, for him to realize, crap, I have to be there more, I have to be more supportive, I have to grow up. And it's the same thing we see with Kelly. She's used to being the friend who's the joke, and she realized when she basically died, that that's not how she wanted to be seen. That's not who she wanted to be. That's not the person she wanted to be presented at the end of the day, at the end of her life. And we see Molly and Issa also growing, both in career and both in their ability to be friends, have better friendships with each other. Issa is still going, Molly's still growing. They're going to still have their moments, but I think the last thing we could take away from this episode is Issa was absolutely right to remove herself from this situation. I cannot imagine what it would have looked like, him trying to be in a relationship with Issa, take care of the baby, be there with Condola, fight with Condola, end up probably fighting with Issa, and it would have not been a good situation for their relationship. I think if they had been in a relationship, it probably would have been what we saw in the beginning of the show, where it was just eroded to the point where they needed to just be separate. I think at this point, that if they do eventually find their way back to each other, he will have grown to the point where he'll be more of a supportive partner. Hopefully he works out whatever kinks in co-parenting, that he can move forward with the person that he's meant to be with. So again, love the episode. We do see that the next episode is, I don't know if we'll see Lawrence in it. This was more of a Lawrence centric episode. We usually get one every season. This season, it seems like this will be the one, and then we're back to Lawrence's. Issa is out partying. I think they're away. People were a little upset that Issa and Kelly weren't at the party. I'm not really sure why. It was a kids' party. So if they decided not to come because they didn't have kids, that makes sense. But we also don't know. Maybe they came late and they come after the fight, and by the time they come, Lawrence had already left. We don't know. We didn't see the entire party. But I think it does make sense that maybe they didn't, invite their single, unmarried, no children friends to a children's birthday party. So I didn't have that as much of a upsetness about the fact that they didn't show up to the party. They could have sent gifts. They could have came earlier. We don't know. But I'm sure it'll possibly be addressed in maybe the next episode. We'll see. But then we see Issa still friends with Nathan, so that's good. From the last episode, we were concerned of whether or not they would be able to be friends and keep it moving. I felt like Nathan would be able to forgive her and keep moving their relationship forward. I don't think he wants to be without Issa in his life in some way. So we'll see the impact of what happened with them next episode. So that's it for me tonight. Thank you for joining me for this recap. And so, as I always say, follow me on Entertainment in Color on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I also have a TikTok. And, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Right now I'm doing Insecure and Love Island Australia recaps. At the end of the month, there's going to be 12 Dates of Christmas still come out for season 2. If you have not watched season 1, go watch season 1. It's playing on TBS every Saturday at 10. I think it's a double episode, so you can get caught up. If you don't have cable, watch it on HBO Max. And season 2 will be out on HBO Max, I believe, November 25th or 26th. So I'll figure out a schedule for that. Usually they do like a 1 or 2 episode drop the first week, and then 1 episode drop every week after that. It's really cute reality show about dating, very inclusive, and I think it's a fun show, and it's my favorite holiday season. So it's great to see like a Christmas reality show, so about love. So so keep me in mind for that recap, even if you don't watch the show. But I do think it's like, if you're looking for like just mindless fun, it's such a fun show to just watch. So otherwise, watch my recap and I'll tell you what happens on the show. So thank you guys for joining me tonight, and I will see you next time.